I thought I had seen every possible flavor of entitlement during my 15 years working in event management and commercial real estate development. I had dealt with bridezillas, corporate executives who thought they owned the world, and celebrity handlers who made outrageous demands. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened when the Riverside Convention Center decided to host the first ever National Karen Appreciation Convention. Let me back up. My name is Alex, and I own a boutique event planning company that specializes in corporate conferences and niche conventions. We had handled everything from comic book conventions to quilting expos, and we prided ourselves on being able to manage any crowd. The convention center manager, an old friend from business school, called me 6 months before the proposed event date with what seemed like a simple pitch. An organization dedicated to reclaiming the name Karen wanted to host a weekend convention celebrating people named Karen who had made positive contributions to their communities. It sounded harmless, maybe even heartwarming. Teachers named Karen, nurses named Karen, volunteers named Karen, all gathering to share stories and push back against the negative stereotype. The organizing committee assured us they had carefully vetted all attendees and that this would be a positive, drama-free event. They were offering premium rates, and frankly, it seemed like easy money. Before we go further, if you are enjoying this story of epic revenge and convention chaos, please hit that like button and subscribe to KarenEatWorld for more tales of entitled behavior getting exactly what it deserves. Trust me, you will not want to miss what happens next. The problem started exactly 3 months before the convention date, when Karen Hutchinson inserted herself into the planning process. Karen H., as she would insist we call her, was not just an attendee. She was the president of her local HOA, a regional coordinator for 3 different neighborhood watch programs, and apparently, she had decided that this convention needed her expertise. She showed up unannounced at our offices, walked past our receptionist like she owned the building, and planted herself in my office with a 3-ring binder full of demands. "I am here to ensure this convention meets proper standards," she announced, flipping open her binder without so much as a hello. "I have reviewed the preliminary schedule, and I have serious concerns about everything from the panel topics to the catering choices. As someone who has successfully managed multiple community organizations, I think my input is essential." I politely explained that we had professional event planners handling every detail, and that the organizing committee had already approved our plans. Karen H. smiled the way a shark smiles before it bites. "Oh, sweetie, I am sure you think you know what you are doing, but this is a convention for Karens. We have standards. We have expectations. And I will not allow my name to be associated with anything subpar. I have already spoken to the convention center manager, and he agreed I should be consulted on all decisions moving forward." That last part was not entirely true, as I discovered when I called my friend at the convention center. What had actually happened was that Karen H. had called him 17 times in 2 days, sent 43 emails, and eventually worn him down until he said something vague about being open to input just to get her off the phone. But now she had interpreted that as giving her veto power over every aspect of the event. Over the next several weeks, Karen H. made herself indispensable in the worst possible way. She demanded we change the coffee brand because the one we selected was not fair trade certified. Even though it absolutely was, she just did not like the packaging. She insisted we rearrange the entire seating chart for the opening dinner because certain Karens should not be seated near each other based on her own personal assessment of their worthiness. She wanted to approve every single speaker, review every panel description, and sign off on the color scheme for the name badges. I tried to maintain my professional composure. I had dealt with difficult clients before. I redirected her to the organizing committee. I set boundaries about communication. I politely pushed back on the most outrageous demands. But Karen H. had a secret weapon. She had started a Facebook group for convention attendees, and was slowly positioning herself as the unofficial leader. Anytime I said no to one of her demands, she would post in the group about how the event planners did not understand Karen culture and did not respect their needs. Soon I was getting calls from other attendees echoing her complaints. 3 weeks before the convention, Karen H escalated to full war mode. She filed a formal complaint with the convention center claiming our company was discriminating against people named Karen by not taking their concerns seriously. She threatened to organize a boycott. She started a petition demanding I be removed as the lead planner. And then she made her fatal mistake. She showed up at my office with a lawyer. The lawyer was clearly someone as her cousin or neighbor who had done her a favor, because he looked deeply uncomfortable as Karen H laid out her demands. She wanted full control over the convention program, access to all vendor contracts, so she could renegotiate them herself, and compensation for her time serving as an unpaid consultant. If we did not agree, she would sue for breach of contract, even though she was not a party to any contract. The lawyer half-heartedly presented a cease and desist letter that was so poorly written it was almost funny. I smiled pleasantly and told them I would need 24 hours to review their demands with my legal team. What I did not tell them was that my legal team consisted of one of the most prestigious entertainment and contract law firms in the state, led by my sister, who had built her career destroying frivolous lawsuits. I also did not mention that I had been documenting every single one of Karen H's unreasonable demands, every threatening email, every Facebook post, and every instance of harassment for the past 2 months. That evening, I had dinner with my sister and 3 of her partners. We reviewed everything, and they were practically giddy. Karen H had not just been annoying, she had been engaging in textbook tortious interference, attempting to damage our business relationships with vendors and clients. She had made libelous statements on social media, and her demand for compensation created a paper trail of her attempting to extort our company. But my sister suggested something even better than just shutting down her lawsuit. She suggested we let the convention proceed and give Karen H exactly what she wanted. The next morning, I called Karen H and told her that after careful consideration, we were willing to work with her. We would give her an official title, Special Convention Coordinator. She would have input on all remaining decisions. She would have a special badge, recognition at the opening ceremony, and her own office space at the convention center during the event. Karen H was thrilled. She thought she had one. What Karen H did not know was that I had spent the previous evening calling every single vendor, every speaker, and every sponsor to warn them about what was coming. I explained that we had a situation with an attendee who was likely to be extremely difficult, and I asked each of them to document any unreasonable demands or harassment. I also reached out to the organizing committee and explained that we were implementing a strategic plan to protect the event, and I needed their trust. Most importantly, I used my connections. You see, while I had built my event planning company from the ground up, I had not done it in a vacuum. My family had been in commercial real estate development for 3 generations. My father had developed half the office parks in the Tri-County area. My uncle sat on the board of the convention center. And my college roommate was now a senior producer at the local news station. I made some calls. The convention weekend arrived, and true to predictions, 100 Karens showed up. The vast majority were lovely people, excited to celebrate their name and connect with others who understood the frustration of being stereotyped. But mixed in with the genuine attendees were about 20 Karens who embodied every negative trait the stereotypes suggested. And Karen H had somehow become their ringleader. The drama started before registration even opened. Karen H decided the check-in process was too slow and tried to pull rank to skip the line. When that did not work, she began loudly complaining that our staff was incompetent. She demanded to speak to a manager about the temperature in the lobby. She sent 3 people to tears before noon on Friday. But we documented everything. The afternoon panels were worse. Karen H. interrupted speakers to correct them, argued with other attendees about whose experiences were more valid, and actually tried to physically take the microphone away from a panelist she disagreed with. During the diversity and inclusion panel titled Karens of Color Share Their Experiences, she loudly insisted that all Karens face the same discrimination and that race had nothing to do with it. The panel moderator, an extremely patient woman named Karen Williams, who taught conflict resolution at a university, tried to redirect the conversation. Karen H. responded by standing up and shouting that she was being silenced and that this convention was supposed to be a safe space for all Karens. That evening at the opening dinner, Karen H. complained about everything. The food was too cold. The food was too hot. Her table was too close to the kitchen. There was too much noise. The centerpieces were blocking her view. She sent the waitstaff back to the kitchen 4 times. She demanded to speak to the chef. She asked to be moved to a different table 3 times, and each time found something wrong with the new location. Other attendees were starting to look uncomfortable and embarrassed. But the real explosion came on Saturday morning. The convention schedule included a panel called Reclaiming Our Name: How Karens Are Fighting Back Against Stereotypes. Karen H. had not been selected as a panelist, despite her repeated demands to be included. She sat in the front row, arms crossed, glaring at the stage. 10 minutes into the panel, she stood up and interrupted. "This is ridiculous," she announced to the room. "You people do not understand what it means to be a Karen. A real Karen does not back down. A real Karen demands excellence. A real Karen holds people accountable. You are all just trying to be liked, and that is pathetic. The problem is not the stereotype. The problem is that people do not respect authority anymore." The room went silent. One of the panelists, a woman named Karen Rodriguez, who ran a non-profit for homeless youth, calmly responded. "With respect, I think you might be confusing standing up for yourself with belittling others. There is a difference between advocating for what is right and simply demanding your own way regardless of how it affects people around you." Karen H. turned red. "How dare you? I have done more for my community than you could ever imagine. I run my HOA. I keep my neighborhood safe and property values high. I enforce standards. Without people like me, society would fall apart. You all want to pretend that being nice is more important than being right, but someone has to have standards." The room had completely turned against her now. Even the Karens who had been causing minor problems throughout the convention looked uncomfortable. But Karen H. was not done. She pulled out her phone and started filming, declaring that she was documenting discrimination against strong women and that this footage would go viral. She demanded refunds for everyone. She threatened to sue the convention center. She called security on the panelists for making her feel unsafe. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Security arrived, not to remove the panelists, but to escort Karen H. out of the panel room for disrupting the event. As per our clearly posted code of conduct that every attendee had signed, harassment of speakers and disruption of programming were grounds for removal from individual sessions. Karen H. screamed about her rights. She claimed she was being targeted because she was the only one brave enough to speak the truth. She demanded to speak to whoever was in charge. I appeared in the hallway as security was trying to calm her down. "I am in charge," I said quietly. "And you are in violation of multiple aspects of our attendee code of conduct. You are being removed from this panel. If there are any further disruptions, you will be removed from the convention entirely without a refund, as clearly stated in the terms and conditions you agreed to when you registered." Karen H. laughed in my face. "You cannot do this to me. Do you know who I am? I am the Special Convention Coordinator. You gave me that title. I have authority here. And what is more, I have been documenting every single failure of your company this weekend. The substandard service, the incompetent staff, the way you have let this convention descend into chaos. I am going to ruin you. I am going to sue you for everything you are worth. By the time I am done, you will never work in this industry again." I smiled. It was time. "Karen, I need you to come with me to the convention center manager's office. We have some things to discuss." My tone was pleasant, but something in it made her hesitate. Still, she was too arrogant to back down now. She followed me, ranting the entire way about her rights and her plans to destroy my business. In the office, my sister was waiting, along with the convention center manager, a representative from the organizing committee, and a police officer. On the table was a stack of documents 6 inches thick. My sister stood and introduced herself. "Miss Hutchinson, I am the lead attorney for this event planning company. Over the past 3 months, you have engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment, interference, and attempted extortion against my client. You have made libelous statements on social media damaging their professional reputation. You have interfered with their vendor contracts. You have disrupted a private event that you paid to attend as a guest, not as an authority figure." Karen H. tried to interrupt, but my sister continued. "The title of Special Convention Coordinator was ceremonial and gave you no actual authority, as was clearly stated in the written agreement you signed. You have violated that agreement repeatedly. You have harassed staff, vendors, speakers, and other attendees. We have 47 separate documented incidents from this weekend alone, each witnessed and corroborated by multiple people." The blood was draining from Karen H.'s face, but she rallied. "This is discrimination. You are targeting me because I have high standards. I will sue you for everything." My sister smiled. "Actually, we are suing you for tortious interference, libel, harassment, and attempted extortion. The damages we are seeking will include not only the quantifiable harm to the business, but also the cost of additional security we had to hire specifically because of your behavior, the refunds we are having to issue to attendees who left early because you made them uncomfortable, and the reputational harm your social media campaign caused." She slid the first document across the table. It was a lawsuit, already filed that morning. Karen H. stared at it like it was a snake. "Additionally," my sister continued, "the convention center is banning you from all future events on these premises. The organizing committee is refunding your convention fee and permanently banning you from any future Karen conventions. And this officer is here because 3 attendees have filed formal harassment complaints against you, and the convention center is pursuing trespassing charges if you do not leave the premises immediately." But I was not done. "There is one more thing, Karen. Do you remember how you mentioned you run your HOA?" She nodded slowly, confused about where this was going. "Well, I made some calls this week. It turns out your HOA has been operating without proper licensing for the past 18 months. Something about failing to renew your corporate registration with the state. I happened to mention this to a friend who works in municipal code enforcement. They are very interested in investigating whether your HOA has been collecting fees and issuing fines without legal authority to do so." Her eyes went wide. "You cannot? That is, how did you?" "Commercial real estate is the family business, Karen. I know every loophole, every regulation, every filing requirement. I also know that you personally have been issuing fines to your neighbors that violate state law because they exceed the maximum amounts allowed and were not properly voted on by the full HOA board. Several of your neighbors are very interested in a class action lawsuit. I may have put them in touch with a lawyer who specializes in HOA disputes." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. It was of the house 2 doors down from hers. That house just sold. The new owners are close personal friends of mine. They have already reviewed your HOA bylaws very carefully, and they have some fascinating plans for challenging several of your rules. They are particularly interested in the rule about approved paint colors, since it turns out that rule was never properly added to the CC and RS. They are thinking of painting their house purple. Very bright purple. Karen H. looked like she might faint. Her entire power structure, everything she had built her identity around, was crumbling in real time. The HOA presidency that gave her authority. The rules she used to control her neighbors. Even her own street was about to become somewhere she could not control. But I said, leaning back in my chair, here is the truly beautiful part. Remember all those Facebook posts you made about how terrible this convention was? How you were documenting everything? Well, several news outlets picked up the story. My college roommate works at Channel 7 News, and they are running a special segment tomorrow about convention disasters. They are calling it When Karens Attack, Inside the Convention Meltdown. They have footage of you screaming at staff, harassing the panelists, and your little speech about how real Karens demand excellence and do not care about being liked. It is going to air right before their most watched Sunday evening program. I showed her the promotional clip on my phone. There she was, red-faced and furious, looking exactly like every negative Karen stereotype come to life. The clip had already been posted online as a teaser and had 50,000 views in 3 hours. Your neighbors are going to see it. Your HOA members are going to see it. Everyone you have ever tried to exert authority over is going to see exactly who you really are. And the best part? Everything in that news segment is completely factual. You said those things. You did those things. You cannot sue for defamation when it is just video of your own behavior. Karen H's hands were shaking. She looked at the lawsuit, at the police officer, at the news clip, at the photo of her new purple house adjacent neighbors. For the first time since I had met her, she was completely silent. The weight of what had just happened was crashing down on her. She had weaponized complaints, rules, and her own sense of authority for so long that she never considered someone might use the same tactics against her, but with actual legal backing, real resources, and meticulous documentation. "How?" she finally whispered. "How did you do all of this?" I smiled. "Karen, you assumed that because I plan events for a living, I was someone you could push around. You never asked about my background. You never wondered how I could afford to run a boutique company that turns down more clients than it accepts. You never questioned why I stayed so calm every time you threatened me. I do not plan events because I need the money. I plan events because I enjoy creating experiences for people. But my family has been in commercial real estate development for decades. I have lawyers on retainer who handle multi-million-dollar contracts. I have connections throughout this entire city. And I have resources you never dreamed of." I stood up. "You tried to use rules and systems and authority to bully people who you thought could not fight back. But you picked the wrong person. Every single thing I did to you was completely legal. I did not break any rules. I just used them better than you ever could. That is the difference between actual power and just being loud." Karen H. sat frozen in her chair, staring at the lawsuit, the expression on her face one of absolute devastation as she finally fully understood that her reign of petty tyranny was over, and that she had brought this entirely upon herself by targeting someone who had the means, the knowledge, and the patience to systematically dismantle everything she had built. If you love this story of epic convention revenge, please smash that like button and subscribe to KarenEatWorld. We have got tons more stories about entitled people getting exactly what they deserve, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single one. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when karma comes calling. Thanks for watching.